Hello, my name is Daniel Schoonmaker, Executive Director for Michigan State Business Forum, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's presentation of our webinar series. For those who are not familiar with the organization, the forum is a collaboration of business institutions working to promote practices that advance climate leadership, social justice, and the creation of a circular economy. We host events and programs throughout the state, including this monthly webinar series, which is sponsored by Shupan with additional support from Foresight Management. If you are not yet a member of Michigan State Business Forum, you can become one today at misbf.org/join, or you can send me an email for more information. I'd like to invite you to join us. I'd also like to invite you to join us at one of our upcoming events where we can gather network around the states. On September 17th, we have our Lakeshore Climate Forum at the Muskegon Innovation Hub at Grand Valley State University. We're hosting a green drinks networking event at 5 Heart Earthworm Farm in the Great Lakes Bay Area. Come check out a tour of their Vera composting facility and enjoy some networking and drinks. And finally, sponsorship opportunities and awards nominations are now available for our 12th annual Triple Bottom Line Bash on November 17th at Frederick Meyer Gardens and Sculpture Park in Grand Rapids. Sell out each year, the gala will feature Michigan Sustainable Business of the Year Awards and Michigan Sustainable Business Hall of Fame induction. We'll have dinner, bar of local beer and wine, and what we think is the best networking of the year. Now I'd like to introduce our program for today. What can the end teach the beginning? Lessons in reuse and circular design. And then just as an AV check, Carrie, are we hearing an echo? Are we good?
Good to go.
Okay, all right. Sorry for the person who flagged that in the chat. We're not experiencing it on our side. On that note, for our attendees, please note that you can share thoughts and questions with the panelists or all attendees through either the Q&A function located in the, at least on my screen, the center bottom of your screen, or the chat function, which you can access through the same panel, and it'll pop up on the right side of your screen if you were unfamiliar with Zoom. We would expect to be plentiful time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. Now I'd like to start by introducing our speakers for today, Heidi Frazier, Head of Sustainability at Green Standards, and Katie Chapman, Lead Sustainability Specialist at Haworth. Heidi and Katie, thank you for joining us today. And Heidi, I think we're going to start off with you, so I'm going to let you kick off your presentation here.
All right, thanks, Dan. So bear with me while I share my screen for audio. Let's see here. No, I'm not seeing that option, of course. All right, hopefully that's working. Hi, everyone. My name is Heidi Frazier. I am with Green Standards. We're a certified B Corporation. But a little bit about me, you might know me from other capacities at West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. I've been around the block a little bit. And I spent the last 7 years of my career working for Steelcase as a circular economy manager. And so I've learned some things around the circular economy, and in that capacity was working directly with clients at the end of product life and trying to figure out how we could support them. And that's actually how I was introduced to Green Standards. And so now in my capacity at Green Standards, I'm head of sustainability. I'm very excited to be here working on this side of things, helping to keep all of your office interiors out of the landfill after its use. So, really when we're talking about circular economy, I think an important factor is to fall in love with the problem and really understand what that problem looks like, who the stakeholders are in that problem. And ultimately for us, the built environment has a waste and emissions problem. We know around 10 million tons of office waste are landfilled every year. That's equivalent to each of us getting 10 chairs each in US and Canada. And then we also know there's an emissions problem with the built environment. Around 40% of our global greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the built environment. We know too that there's a office space kind of flux happening right now. A lot of offices are moving and changing, and so that comes with its own set of problems and issues. And ultimately, one of the things that I've learned over the last year and a half is that we were not measuring the impacts of the interiors very well. So we're doing a whole life cycle building assessment. And we're looking at everything from embodied carbon impact perspective. Interiors were often not getting measured, and they always have mattered. We just weren't measuring them. And so if you look at this graphic on the right here, it shows you that yeah,
Heidi,
yeah,
are you sharing your screen right now?
I am. Are you not seeing it?
I am not seeing that. No.
Okay, let me try one more time here. There we go. You see this?
I can see the instructions for how to share in Zoom.
Oh no. Okay, it's not working then. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
I know it was working earlier.
Some Zoom technical difficulties. Let's see if this works. My sound might not work. Can you see this now, Dan?
Good to go. Good to go.
Yeah. So my videos may not work, but we'll just roll with the punches here. So you can see the right graphic there. It's showing you the interiors have a pretty significant impact, especially if they're being churned throughout the interiors every 2.5 years. So that is another thing that we're seeing happen where because there's so much uncertainty in office spaces right now, post-pandemic, that interiors are starting to churn more frequently. And so you can see that embodied carbon impact is actually greater than the core and shell of the building alone. And so it's pretty significant. Again, it's always mattered. We just weren't measuring it. I used to always get asked what the most sustainable option was. And ultimately, the answer is the one that you're already sitting in, right? And so similarly with embodied carbon, we know that you can save a significant amount of embodied carbon by reusing assets and materials. And this graphic showing you the difference between a task chair and a desk, if it's new versus reused as is, it's pretty significant embodied carbon savings up to 80%. A lot of companies know that there is a better way, and we're working with at least 40 of the Fortune 100, several of the Fortune 500 clients who know that there is a better way. And we like to think of that as sustainable decommissioning. And really, Green Standards kind of coined this term over 15 years ago. And what we try to do is keep assets in their highest use for as long as possible. And that might sound familiar because that's actually the definition of a circular economy. It's one of the pillars of a circular economy. We do that through a waste hierarchy approach. We try to keep assets in use for longer through reuse. We either look at their own portfolio to see if there's any existing reuse strategies that we can help implement with them. We've even done some employee sales, employee donations, so reusing within their own employee community. And then reselling, so looking for value for those assets. Oftentimes when we're dealing with very high quality assets, like you see here, the fern chair from Hayworth, there's value on the resale market for those materials. And so we try to find that for our clients and bring money back into the project, offsetting project costs. And then donations is a huge pillar of what we do. We work with over 25,000 nonprofits in local communities to donate assets that may not have a use for you any longer, but they do have a use for your local community partners. And then what we can't reuse, resell, and donate, we try to recycle, oftentimes looking for specialized recyclers that can manage some of these complex materials that we're dealing with. What's in scope? So if you rip the roof of a building off and dump it upside down, everything that might fall out is actually in scope. So that includes all of the interiors, decor, plants, you name it, we've probably managed it, everything from ceiling tiles to flooring tiles and anything in between. We try to make it easy for clients. And I would say most of our clients are not coming to us from a sustainability perspective, actually. A lot of times there's some unknown cost with doing decommissioning. And part of that is the internal labor time spent to actually manage that project. And so a lot of times clients are coming to us because we are the easy button for them. We can help manage the entire project. We manage all the vendors, and then we get them a very holistic impact report back that shows everything that we did. And then we can do this at scale for them across their entire portfolio. Most of the Fortune 500 clients that we deal with have a global portfolio, and they want the same level of service throughout. And so that's actually partially why they're coming to us. We're working today in over 40 countries and expanding pretty rapidly in the APAC region. Our traditional competitors really are landfill and conventional liquidation. So we're always competing with landfill costs. We know here in Michigan, our costs to landfill are extremely cheap. And so that makes that a pretty difficult competitor when a client is just trying to save costs and money. So they're traditionally going to landfill with these assets. In a liquidation approach, that might sound great in theory, but in practice, over 80% of it is still ending up in the landfill because they're only able to usually sell 20% of what they come in contact with. So you can see to the left, that's actually Green Standards weight distribution or asset distribution by weight to date. So you can see over 41% has been recycled, 26% resold, 29% donated, and 3% reused. That reuse category is growing as more and more clients are becoming aware of reuse potential for cost savings and embodied carbon savings. We turn what we consider a complex problem, it's also an invisible problem, into impact. So oftentimes when we're coming in contact with these assets, the clients have no idea even what they're dealing with. They don't know what their inventory looks like. They don't know what happened to the last project. They probably went to landfill, but they have no metrics associated with it. And so what we're doing is giving them metrics. We're giving them real impact numbers, and this can account for their scope 3 emissions. So if you're an organization out there looking to make an impact in your scope 3 emissions and you don't know where to start, this is actually a really tangible solution to better manage assets from a waste perspective, and it can help contribute to your scope 3 reporting or any of your greenhouse gas reporting. These are the metrics on the right. There are actually Green Standards metrics to date. Over $50 million of in-kind charitable donations. I have a couple of videos. I don't know if the audio is going to work, but ultimately, it's hard to put a dollar number to that non-financial impact. And we try to do that through in-kind donation dollars. But ultimately, that impact is much greater than just the in-kind donation dollars. And then you can see 350,000 tons of CO2 emissions avoided. It's equivalent to around 50,000 homes powered with electricity for a year. So there is a large impact. But as you can see, 128,000 tons, we're barely scraping the surface. There's a lot more waste out there that could be managed in this way. I won't hang too long on this, but this is just how our work contributes to LEED. So if you are trying to get your building certified with LEED, you can achieve up to 12 points through sustainable decommissioning and 2 prerequisites. So it can help with your product certifications, building certifications. And so I wanted to just kind of dive into best practices from leading organizations and how that relates to a circular economy. And the first is just, like I mentioned before, falling in love with the problem. But then the second piece there is finding value. So you can always look for the low-hanging fruit and the value. You'll find it. It usually exists. In this case, this was with a large banking client. They wanted to reuse some of these workstations that you see pictured here. And Green Standards helped them do that reuse. And in doing that, we were able to achieve over $150,000 of savings for them. To date, we've done several projects across the US with this company, and over 237,000 of in-kind donation dollars. Over 45 nonprofits have benefited, and they're averaging a 99% landfill diversion. So that's pretty significant, and they've been able to find that value. Another thing that we're doing a lot of this year, for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, all of a sudden warehousing kind of ticked up for business. Ultimately, we saved last year over $1 million, 1.5 million to be exact, in warehouse storage. Oftentimes, clients are storing assets in warehouses. And I think the intent is really good, right, around reuse, of potentially storing for potential reuse in the future. But ultimately, what we found is a lot of warehouses end up getting clearance to landfill, just because, again, that's probably the easiest solution for them at the time. And so there's a lot of opportunity to make sure that these assets aren't just sitting in a warehouse, racking up storage fees, that they get back into the local community and continue to do the good work that they should be doing. Don't forget about the non-financial wins. So when we're thinking about a circular economy, it can be easy to only focus on return on investment from a financial perspective, but there's a lot of non-financial wins, whether it's risk reduction or, in this case, community impact. We've been doing business with General Motors for a very long time, and they had a huge project in the Detroit metro region. Over 7,000 tons were diverted. They impacted over 106 nonprofits in their local community, mostly schools, that have a need that are not being fulfilled through their own financials. So don't forget about your local communities and those non-financial impacts. It does make a difference. There was over $1 million donated in their local communities. I like this one the most. Stay close to your customer in the third act. I think there's a lot of energy put into selling and marketing products, but there is not as much energy or focus on what happens to those products at the end of their life. And in this case, I think Hayworth really stepped up and kind of shined the light on helping a client in that third act, becoming close with the client in the third act. We worked through a Hayworth dealer called Encompass down in Kansas City to help support a client called J.E. Dunn in this project. And ultimately, there was a lot of success. It was 98 tons of CO2 emissions avoided. So it's 14 houses worth of electricity, $47,000 of in-kind donation, and they're achieving 100% landfill diversion. And this really couldn't have been done without Encompass and Hayworth's support. And so I think it's really important to focus on that third act. In doing so, you'll learn a lot about your client's decision-making. You'll learn a lot about the products, what's happening to those products. Something Green Standards is doing quite often is going back to the original manufacturers and informing them what is happening to the products at the end of life so that they can better inform their design. And Katie's going to talk a little bit about how Hayworth is implementing circular design practices. So the landfill doesn't deserve your furniture, your local communities do. And Dan, you'll have to let me know if the sound is working on this. I'm not sure if it will.
And I work for St. Albans Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Club, we are a grassroots organization that we serve about 7,000 children, 6 to 12 roughly.
Can you hear it,
and
Dan?
about 2,000 youth, anywhere from 13 to 29.
Yes.
The donation has revitalized our space and transformed it drastically. Within 2 hours of putting up and setting up our computer lab, our office, as well as our children's space, we've had parents, participants come in and say, wow, what a difference. We're very appreciative of the donation. It has done wonders. If you think furniture cannot change attitudes, think again. If you don't think furniture can make a difference within programs or within office space, think again.
We're really excited that today we're receiving all of this great furniture and equipment that we'll be able to use to furnish our office and make a comfortable space for our clients, many of whom are survivors of trauma and histories of domestic violence, to be more comfortable as they interact with our staff to access justice and safety here in the US. It's probably hard to make tangible or estimate how much of an impact this furniture is going to have on our work. But I do know that it's not only going to keep our staff safer and more comfortable in the workplace, but it's also going to allow a lot of the survivors of torture and trauma that we work with to become comfortable in a space that otherwise would be pretty difficult to get comfortable in. And so I hope that you know that your donation goes beyond just helping the planet or being generous and is actually making people comfortable in an otherwise difficult time.
So I wanted to share those videos because I think they do a much better job of telling the compelling story of impact than I would. And that's kind of what I was speaking to of don't forget those 9 financial wins. There's a huge impact in local communities that donating furniture has that is hard to put a tangible metric to. So just to kind of summarize, there's a QR code on here. I would encourage you to scan that. It will take you to several free downloads of content that we've been working on in the past 2 years. And one of them is around how to sell circularity to skeptical stakeholders. So it might be very valuable or timely. But just to kind of summarize what we talked about today, So fall in love with the problem. Make sure you understand that problem. Make sure you know what's actually happening. The office furniture example I like to give is oftentimes manufacturers are designing for disassembly, but what's actually happening at end of life is clients don't want to pay for the labor to disassemble those products. And so understanding that, the manufacturers can start designing differently and designing for better reuse scenarios instead of just recyclability. Look for the value. There's usually low hanging fruit value. So make sure you're looking for that and starting there. Once you get a couple wins under your belt, especially if they're financial, it can really kind of encourage buy-in from any skeptical stakeholders. Don't forget about those non-financials, whether it's community impact or risk reduction. Make sure you're calling that out and telling those stories, and even if there are no metrics. And stay close to your customer in the third act. Make sure you understand what's happening to your product or your service in that third act. And then don't forget to share your story. It's really important. Doing storytelling like this helps, I think, shorten learning cycles for folks and keeps us all moving in the same momentum forward towards a more circular economy. So my contact information is below. If you want to reach out for any reason, or if you want to continue the conversation, please get a hold of me. And I'm going to kick it over to my friend Katie Chapman to talk about circular design practices.
Thanks, Heidi. That was awesome. I always love hearing Heidi talk because she's got such great things to share. I'm gonna share my screen now. Here we go. Should be working. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for your time today. I'm Katie Chapman, lead sustainability specialist. And essentially my role at Hayworth is that I'm responsible for our circular economy goals. So I work on the front end of product design. So making sure that our project teams know exactly what their targets are for sustainability for those projects. And then also at a product's the end of its useful life, and making sure that we have ways to support our dealers and other services to help enable that sustainable decommissioning. So I'm kind of on like both ends of the product, and then like everywhere in between, right? Because as sustainability folks, we do all sorts of stuff. So if you're not familiar with Hayworth, just a little bit about who we are. We're a family-owned company still. The Hayworth family is very much involved in its day-to-day. We have about 8,000 members worldwide. So our employees are called members because we are well part of the Hayworth family. And we operate in about 150 different countries. A lot of what I'll be talking about is in reference to Hayworth Group. So I'll explain a little bit about what that means. But you'll kind of learn a little bit more as we go on. So our vision is to make great spaces that empower people to thrive and work their best. So we are not about just making furniture. We want to make sure that the furniture that goes into spaces is efficient, it's reconfigurable, it's modular, and enables everyone to do their best work wherever it may be. So this is a little bit of where we are at. So within Hayworth Group, we have a multitude of brands, and you can see our products from residential to auditoriums, hospitality, aviation, yachting, outdoors. So really anywhere you can be inside is where our products are. So I like to share this slide because Hayworth is most known for commercial interiors, but there's also so much more that we do. And sustainability has always been a part of our story. It's really roots back all the way to our founder, G.W. Hayworth. He would take home production scrap, put it in his barn, and save it for the next time he needed to make something new. He always knew that there was value in that material, even though it was scrap. It was still useful. And the Hayworth family has always been a large part of the community as well. And so that's kind of how we are founded, right? We're grounded in responsibility to our communities and to the planet. Sustainability is part of our corporate values as well. And that's how we're able to then integrate it into really everything that we do. We have a pretty small sustainability team, and that's on purpose So that way the rest of the organization helps in owning the execution of sustainability initiatives. And to us, that's how you really drive that true change, is that you get everybody involved. So a couple of things, we're committed to these leading frameworks. So we report to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We have also been a signatory of the UN Global Compact since 2011. We also report to CDP. We're a private company, so our questionnaire is private, but we're happy to share our score if anybody needs it. Our suppliers that need that data also get it through the platform. We also are rated by EcoVadis, and I think this is a really great platform because we have to improve every year, right? In order to maintain our gold status for 9 years consecutively, we have to continuously improve. Our customers can also go in and write us corrective action. So if there's somewhere that they want us to improve, they can do it right there in the EcoVadis platform. So I really like how there's a lot of transparency and accountability within this as well. And if you're at a company that also reports, you know that it's not easy, right? Every year we have to get better at what we do. So, and that here is regarding our strategy, we think beyond our business with a collective purpose to make the world better. And we do this through our 4 pillars: people, circular economy, operational performance, and governance. And I'm not going to go into detail on each of these pillars since today's topic is around circular economy. So that's what I'm going to stay true to. But if you want to learn more about each of our specific targets, they're on our website, or we can always have a conversation later as well. So I do want to tie real quick our circularity to our net zero goal. So we do have a net zero goal to achieve that by 2050. That's a 90% emissions reduction in all scopes. We also are committed to a near-term target of a 60% reduction in scope 1 and 2 by 2030. And then in our scope 3, that's a 42% reduction by 2030. Within our scope 3, right, that's our purchased goods and services, upstream transportation and downstream transportation, and then end-of-life treatment of sold products. And so this is where our circularity strategy connects to net zero. So the more we're integrating sustainable materials, the more it's going to drive down our scope 3 emissions, as well as diverting product from landfill is also going to help as well. So within our circular economy pillar, our strategy is around designing products essentially for infinite use cycles. We don't want our products to end up in landfill. That's not how we design them. And so we have to make sure that our products are designed in a way that makes it easier for the end user to either upgrade, refurbish, repair, recycle, or reuse, and not just easily throw it away. And we do that through also enhancing our circular services programs. And then we also are exploring business models around like a leasing or a subscription-based model that we're calling workplace as a service. This is still in development, so unfortunately I don't have a lot to share yet, but know that it's coming. So within circular design, we have what we call our circular design philosophy. And we integrate this into our new product development process. So that way, every new product is evaluated for sustainability. So before our designers even know what the product looks like, right? They just know that there's this thing that they have to design. We are there with them having a workshop with the project team to identify what are the sustainability targets for this project. So, and we have a framework that we follow, which is our circular design philosophy. So we focus on sustainable materials, product use extension, and responsible end of life. And so by our designers knowing exactly what sustainability targets they need to meet, they can then incorporate that into the design. It doesn't make sense for us to come, mid-process and give them all these sustainability targets, and then we have to redesign the product, that's just going to cause, it's going to increase cost, increase timeline. I'm not making any friends that way. So the earlier we can be engaged, the more successful we are in making sure that our products are designed for sustainability. And we also have checkpoints along the way that helps hold all of these project teams accountable. So I'm going to go into a little bit about each of these 3 aspects of circular design that we utilize and how we get there. So within sustainable materials, we are looking at first and foremost, material chemistry. So that is kind of what that is grounded on. And then we also look at other opportunities to increase the sustainable material usage there. So whether it's recycled content, circular materials, low carbon, bio-based, right? There's a lot there. But first and foremost, we start with material chemistry. And we do that through what we call the Hayworth Banned Chemicals list. We've been doing this since 2013. That's when it was initially launched. And we've kind of revised it and we've grown it over the years. And now we have over 5,000 substances that are on this list that we do not allow in our product. So every single product, every single material that comes through our doors, including processed chemicals, are evaluated against the Hayworth Banned Chemicals list. And so that includes materials like chlorinated polymers like PVC, biocides, azodyes, antimicrobials, PFAS or forever chemicals, heavy metals, flame retardants, right? All of those problematic chemicals. And, we don't just look at substances that are harmful to humans, but we also make sure that they're ones that, like, we ban substances that are harmful to ecosystem health across the value chain. So we don't want our suppliers using chemicals, even if it doesn't end up on our product. We don't want to cause harm to the environment or the humans that are within our supply chain either. So another way that we've incorporated sustainable materials is through Fern. We're really, really excited to have Fern made with closed loop materials. And it is so photographed here is the black finishes. And so that is the version that has those closed loop manufacturing process integrated into it. It's our highest volume chair that we sell. And so for us, this was the really kind of no-brainer that in order to make the greatest amount of impact is we use our highest volume configuration. And it's also just integrated into the product. So you don't have to ask for it. There's no upcharge. It's just what you're automatically going to get. And the way that we did that was partnering with Padnos, our recycling company, and then Royal Technologies, who's one of our injection molders. And, frankly, this took a long time. So over 2 years ago, we approached some of our suppliers with this idea. Initially, everyone was like, there's no way this is not possible. There's no way we can do it. But we just had to find the right partners. And essentially, we utilized the infrastructure that was already there. So once we found the right partners, it wasn't that hard because the technology was there. And so that to me is like one of the lessons learned is like, even though it seemed like it was really difficult, it actually wasn't. And once we actually got going, it wasn't that hard. The most difficult part was working with engineering and making sure that they understood that the risk was low in this. So essentially what we did is our production scrap and then any chairs that come back through our take back program, as long as they're disassembled and it's the right materials, are then mixed in with Royal's production scrap at Padnos. They then grind it up, process it, and send it back to Royal, who then make it into these Fern chair parts. So there's 9 parts that have been transitioned. And just those 9 parts alone reduced the chair's carbon footprint by 10%. And to me, if that alone made that much of an impact, can you imagine once we implement this across more product lines, even across the industry? And that's why we've been really transparent with who we are working with, because we want everyone to know these suppliers, these recyclers are innovators, work with them. They can help create a more of a circular economy, especially in West Michigan, but across the US. So within product use extension, so this is where, Heidi was talking about how embodied carbon increases over time in a building because of that churn and bringing in new interiors products. And we want to make sure that our products are in their useful life for as long as possible. We make durable, long-lasting goods. And so part of our development process is basically doing we call it like a repair and disassembly workshop. So once we have a minimum viable prototype, we do a workshop where it's the entire project team, a few more additional engineers, and we disassemble the product then. And we go through part by part what is the user experience for repairing this chair? So if they have to change out the arm caps, what is that experience for them? How easy is it for them to do that? Do they need special tools, right? We don't allow special tools to repair our products. We have to use just your standard tools. We don't use specialized equipment because we want to make sure that those products are repaired over time. If it's a workstation, right? Is it compatible to existing workstations that are already out there? Because we want to make sure that any product extensions we make to our systems line plug and play into those that are existing. So that way our customers don't have to completely change out their entire systems product. So one example is the Ludo Lounge. This is designed by Patricia Urquiola. It is manufactured by one of our partner brands, Casina, and the upholstery is completely removable. There is no glues, there's no adhesives or staples or anything like that. The upholstery is attached with zippers, Velcro, and drawstring. And so this it's been around for a long time. This is not a new product, but it's been kind of how we think for all new products as well. So for example, our test chairs, they use a drawstring upholstery. They do not use staples. When it comes to lounge products, we are eliminating glues and staples so that way that upholstery can come off. So the Ludo Lounge is one of those examples that's been around for a long time and is still one of those really perfect examples of how you can design a product so that the useful life lasts as long as possible. And then finally, we know that our products do eventually reach the end of their useful life. So how are we designing our products so that they can get disassembled if there's availability to do so? One of the things working with Heidi so often is we realize that yes, we design our products to be disassembled, but that doesn't mean that's what happens every single time. And so we need to make it easier and more approachable. And so by eliminating glues, by using drawstrings, those are the kind of things that help at least make it a little bit easier. But we hope that our products get repaired multiple times before it eventually reaches the end of that useful life. So here's just one example. This is the Cardigan Lounge. It's made with 3D knit technology, which is a zero waste process. There's no glues or adhesives. There's only 4 components of this chair. The 3D knit actually is knit in a way that provides support and contour. So that way we didn't have to use additional foam or anything like that. So we used that technology to help reduce the amount of materials we needed to use. It's 100% recyclable. It's assembled using only 6 screws. So that means it's easy to take apart as well. And what's kind of interesting, the foam there is, that seat foam is a biomass balance foam. And so that means that it uses bio-based feedstocks in the manufacturing process, and that reduces the carbon footprint by about 80%. So as far as supporting circular services, so, there's a lot of different options that we provide because we know that it's not a one size fits all. Every single project is different. And so we try to focus on local distribution first. And that could be through our dealer network who might have their own programs and their own partnerships, and we support them with that. If they don't, that's when we bring in a partner like Green Standards, and they can then support them as well. We do have a take back program, and we've had a take back program since about 2008. We will take back any Hayworth product. The customer or the dealer pays for transportation to get it to us, and then we take it from there. So whenever we get product back, we'll clean it up. If it's still usable, we will clean it up, and we will then either donate it or sell it through our outlet store. We recently had about 200 chairs come back through the state of Michigan, and we cleaned up the ones that we could, and we're just giving them away. We're donating them because they are still useful. They're over 15 years old and they can still be used. Those that are not usable, we then take them apart, and then they go to Padnos, our recycling partner. We also have a Second Life program. This is available in Europe and Asia, where their sales model is a little bit different. So in the US, we use a dealership model. Internationally, they sell direct to customers. And so they have a Second Life program where they are able to take back product from a customer, refurb it, and either give it back to them or resell it. So we've been doing that for a while there too, and we're hoping eventually we can bring it over here as well. One example, so this just shows like when you have a company-wide commitment on diverting furniture from landfill, it can really create some amazing results. Schneider Electric has been a Hayworth customer for a long time. BOS is their dealership. They're based out of the Chicago area, but they have multiple locations across the US. So in this particular study, Schneider Electric was closing some buildings, and they redistributed that furniture then across 27 different sites across North America. And so within those projects, they only had to decommission just under 1 million pounds, and they had a 93% diversion rate. Reusing all of that product was about 2.3 million pounds of carbon savings, but also there was about $4 million in cost savings. And so this is also part of the benefit, right? Is that reusing product will also help generate cost savings for the customer as well. Happy to sell new when it's appropriate, but if that product can still be reused, that's what we made it for. Another customer we're working with right now actually just purchased 26 floors of Hayworth product, and it's 25-year-old product. And we are going to be helping them redesign that building to reuse all of it. So I can't imagine what the carbon savings are going to be from that. So with that, if you want to learn more about everything that we're doing, we do publish an annual corporate social responsibility report. We published our 20th report this past April. We published it for the previous calendar year. We try to get it out by Earth Day as quickly as possible. So you can always learn more there or on our website. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie and Heidi. You see, I have a few questions here. Starting off, this is from Mike Stemo. When recycling a product, is there an expected time to disassemble the product and the respective materials for the recycling process?
I mean, at least from the Hayworth side, we don't time how long it takes to disassemble. We just want to make sure that it can be done using simple tools. We had a few people who were non-engineers, non-experts disassemble our most complicated product, and it took them almost all day. And so that to us was a flag. We're like, okay, we need to make this a lot easier. But there's no established time. We just want to make sure that it actually can be.
Yeah, and then maybe from our perspective, when we're coming in contact with assets, usually there's a lot of them. So there's a high volume. So we're not talking like 10 chairs, we're talking thousands. And so the client traditionally does not see value in paying for the labor to disassemble all of those chairs. And that's understandable, right? Because that labor cost to do that would far outweigh any of the impact for recycling. And then I think the other piece there is dealing on this side of things, I guess the end of life recovery side of things. I've learned firsthand that our recycling infrastructure, for lack of better terms, sucks. And so it's very challenging to find recyclers in all markets that even accept different types of plastics, for example. So oftentimes, unless it has metal content, the local recycling infrastructure is just not set up to help support that. So that's part of the challenge as well. And that's something that manufacturers have no control over, the recycling infrastructure. So that's part of the challenge that we find at the end of life.
No. Thank you on that. Katie, can you talk a little more about the importance of designing for recyclability? Because in kind of how Heidi just noted, besides assembly, there are a fair number of materials that don't align with the local infrastructure.
Yeah, so we really try to design our products in a way that you can break them down into homogeneous materials. There are some instances where you can't get away from it, but when we're designing products, we have like restrictions in place around like co-molding. So if you're co-molding like two plastics together, we don't allow that because we know that those two plastics cannot be separated again. We prioritize non-permanent bonds like screws and clips that can easily then be removed. So that way, if there is the opportunity to disassemble it or even repair it, it's as easy as possible. Even when it comes to repairing product, because service parts has been something that the furniture industry has been doing for a long time, right? Because we want our products to last. And making sure that those service parts are affordable, for one thing, that they're easily available. So that way our dealers can easily get them, so that way they can do those repairs. And then they can also then break down those components. We've even had dealers just send us back. So like they collect the old service parts that they collect over time, and then we can take those back through our take back program, especially if their local infrastructure isn't going to take them.
Maybe Dan, just to add one thing, I think it's important to note that Hayworth isn't designing for recyclability. They're designing for longevity, durability, and reuse first, right? And so they're actually following that waste hierarchy approach in their design process. And I think what we've come in contact with when we actually track and measure which products we're coming in contact with at the end of life. And we are actually giving Katie and her team back that data. And one of the highest reselling products we come in contact with is Hayworth task chairs. So that just is a testament to their durability, their longevity, the fact that they're actually holding value long after that first use is sort of a testament to that design principle of designing for longevity and durability first.
Okay. And the if the goal is to extend extend the durability and life and life of a product, what is the real expectation by the time it moves into the resale and then to the disposal market?
I can jump in there. So again, like Hayworth task chairs, for example, have a high value on our resale market. So actually, we love coming in contact with Hayworth products because we know that that's actually going to help bring value back into the project and help offset the disposal costs for the client. So oftentimes when we're coming in contact with those chairs, they haven't actually reached their full life cycle yet. And that's something that when we came back in to talk to Katie and her team, they were shocked by that, right? To learn that they're building these products for 10, 15, 30 years plus, but yet the client is only using it for 2.5 years or 3.5 years. And so when that chair gets resold, it's going to have a long life cycle extension. In our donation network, I can tell you that often we're coming in contact with chairs that maybe don't have resale potential, but we have a pretty high standard of quality for what we donate. And then that chair is getting extended usually long beyond its original life cycle, sometimes even 10 plus years beyond its original life cycle. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, Dan, but it's often longer than the original life cycle through resale and donations.
Yeah, and even modularity too is a really important design feature, is to make sure that our products can be reconfigured. Systems products, demountable wall partitions, those are intended to be, 30-year lifespan, even 50-year lifespan products. And so our customers have to be able to reconfigure them. So we have to design them in a way that you can reconfigure, because every few years, working habits change, desks get smaller. And so we have to make sure that our products can adapt with our customers as well and how their working habits are changing.
Yeah, we also work with a bunch of remanufacturing partners, and they love Hayworth products because they, even if they don't have modularity or life cycle extension for the client, the remanufacturing partner can usually take those components and those materials and remake whatever needs to be remade and resell it. So there's still a ton of value on the remanufacturing market for Hayworth materials.
Well, that's great. Question from Andrew Wellesley. When you do have hard to recycle materials, which doesn't happen very much with Hayworth products, because we never have to recycle them, and I have my chair here will last forever. How do you deal with that? Is it better to just have a policy in place to avoid difficult materials like bonded plastics of different types?
Yeah, I mean, so we're trying to get that at the beginning, so that way we don't then have to worry about hard to recycle materials on the back end. But there are materials that cannot be recycled, like work surfaces, wood case goods, right? That's a big problem in the industry, because once you laminate particle board and you edge band it, there's really not much you can do with it after that. And so, our research and development teams are trying to figure out ways that we can, there's alternative materials out there. Could those work? Is there new bonding methods? There's a lot of different options that I think the whole industry has been trying to figure out, and how to deal with wood furniture in general.
Yeah, maybe just add to that. Wood furniture is our most difficult to recycle material. Usually, even when we're coming in contact with like very high-end private offices, where the stuff we're coming in contact with is not, cheap materials necessarily. It's just very hard to disassemble and then reuse in that exact same configuration, because it usually is not meant to do that. And then again, speaking to the recycling infrastructure, there are very few wood recyclers in the US. I think I can maybe count on one hand how many there are. And so that's our biggest challenge when we're coming in contact with wood furniture. If we can't find a resale or donation outlet for it, recycling is very challenging.
And so I guess to actually for a point of time, I want to thank you and Katie, Heidi and Katie, for taking the time to talk to us today. It was a great discussion. I learned quite a bit myself. I did notice there was a question in there about universities that was specific to green standards. I'm not sure if that was from a client standpoint or a donation standpoint, but I trust they'll find the QR code and the other information to be able to get in touch with them on that. And I want to invite everyone to please check out our upcoming programs and keep an eye out for the next webinar coming out and the follow-up information here. And I believe we'll be, correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie, we'll be sharing the slide decks in that follow-up email that would come within the next 24 hours or so here today. And she didn't tell me we're not, so good. All right. Again, thank you so much, Katie. Thank you so much, Heidi, for a great discussion today. always greatly enjoy hearing of the ladies from Hayworth and learning about the wonderful service that Green Standards offers its clients. Thank you everyone for joining us today. That's our program.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.